All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Writers Drinking Whiskey. I'm your host, barkeep, humble bar servant, as always, William R. Hincy. And today I am honored and thrilled to be joined with TD Johnston. Tim, welcome to the Whiskey Bar.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, especially after seeing your background. I need to some more things with my library. This is my writing desk. But I think introducing some bottles to my environment might be a good idea.
I think it's always a good idea. Yeah.
But I did come prepared, so
that's the most important part. Yeah.
Well, I see your Steelers clock.
Oh, I am. Yeah, I'm a West Virginia boy.
I am a Pittsburgh boy.
Oh, I am. Very good.
Yeah, I was born in Pittsburgh, lifelong Steelers, Pirates, Penguins fan. Yeah.
Very cool. You would fit in with my family for sure. Yeah. What part were you? The city of Pittsburgh, or?
As a matter of fact, if you don't mind me standing up for a second.
No.
Let's see. This helmet is signed, has a little dust gathered on it, but it is signed by the Steelers steel curtain from the 70s.
Very cool. That is awesome.
Joe Green, Elsie Green,
right.
Dwight White.
Right. Is it the whole front four?
The whole front four.
That is awesome.
Signed this helmet. Yeah, and
you need that in a protective glass case. I mean, I was just collecting dust.
I actually do, but I don't really have room for everything that I have up. But this football was given to me by Franco Harris.
Oh, that is awesome.
Back in the 90s, I coached Franco's son, but not in football. He didn't play football. He played baseball. And I coached Franco's son in Pittsburgh at a high school in Pittsburgh called Swickley Academy. And Franco, I was moving on to a school in Virginia. And Franco and his wife took me out to dinner right before I moved away. And he gave me this ball.
That is awesome.
Had a grand time. The nicest guy you could ever meet.
Right. That is awesome.
Yeah.
I'm completely geeking out now.
What's that?
So I'm geeking out now. I was always, I admired you as a writer, but now as a person, like my esteem of you just went way up. Just the Steeler fandom and collections. That's awesome.
Well, there's a lot more where that came from, but I know that's not what we're doing tonight. No, I've still got a scrapbook that I made as a middle school kid when they were winning Super Bowls.
That's awesome.
I'm old enough that I get to say that I was Steelers when Steelers wasn't cool.
Sure. Well, I mean, I grew up in the 80s, so I don't think anyone thought they were so cool in the 80s, but we had some residual of the steel curtain that we lived off of. But
right.
Yeah. But yeah, no, my grandfather was born and raised in Canonsburg. Okay. And he's still there. He's never really left. So yeah, that's my dad was there. Everyone, but I was a Air Force brat, so I love the Steelers from family. Like the Pittsburgh teams from family. We've been out here. Geez, my dad moved out here when I was about 4. We ended up in California.
Right.
We were in Omaha, Nebraska, because it's a military base, the Air Force base there, and kind of moved around. But so yeah, that's how I talk to my grandparents and stuff. We have like barely anything to talk about. We're like, oh yeah, how the kids? Oh yeah. Oh, Steelers. Oh, then we ramble on.
It's not a fun conversation this year, but that's okay. They'll get a good draft pick.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll give you my best introduction here, but I know I'm gonna forget something. So amongst all the things you've done here, you won the International Book Award for Friday Afternoon and Other Stories. Which is brilliant. Brilliant short story collection. I recommend everyone get it. The title story is Everything You Could Want and More, and
thank you.
It's just one of many in the collection. There's Waiting for Eisenhower, the second short story collection, which I was gracious enough that you asked me to leave and write you a blurb for, and I get to read that early, so that was super fun for me. And then there's the most recent, although maybe I got those two mixed up because maybe Reciprocity came first, but
No, Reciprocity is my first novel and third book. Yeah.
Third book, perfect. So that's the most recent. So that's the novel, which was optioned by Universal for series, which congratulations on that. And then amongst all of that great work, there's the founding, editing, the Short Story America conference, and then the anthology of short stories by the same name, which in my opinion is one of the, not just because I've been published there, but in my opinion is one of the most, if not the most preeminent short story collection running today. Just always brilliant, super amount of brilliant work strolling through there.
On behalf of the 200 and some odd authors in the series, I thank you.
Right, yeah. So anything, so I like to give the writer credits, and if I missed anything, correct me. Anything else audience should know about you just as a human being? Like we discussed before the show, and people will get familiar with this. I'm trying to point it. It's so hard.
Yeah.
I get my Steelers logo over here that I make sure no matter how I do this camera always shows up. So we found out we have a mutual love for the Steelers. Anything else our audience should know?
I spent many years in independent education. I was a high school basketball coach for a long time. I taught English from the freshman through 12th grade high school levels, even taught 7th grade English in Miami. I taught creative writing. My bachelor's degree in college from Davidson College in English. I should say naturally for what we do. And my master's is from Antioch University in Ohio, Rod Serling's alma mater, in an MA in creative writing. I headed 2 college preparatory schools. I think you've read all the stories in my 2 collections. You probably have noticed that some stories hint at a past in the school world. Sure. That's a big part of my life. Yeah.
Right.
Not anymore. This is what I do now. But being in education informed a fair amount of my short fiction.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, Weeding for Eisenhower, the title story of that collection, felt like it had been lived. I'm sure fictionalized to some degree, but right.
And that one actually is an excerpt, standalone story doable from the novel, but that is a standalone that is actually an excerpt in my second novel, which my agent is shopping right now, called The Daffodil Society, and that story is pulled from that novel. It's not about daffodils, but the central character is a prep school headmaster who has come to a private school in a small southern town, to a school that was founded originally for many of the wrong reasons a long time ago. That story, Weeding for Eisenhower, came from the novel.
Right.
That society. Yeah. So.
Yeah. That's awesome. So awesome. So let's get to the very important, like, first order of business of this show, which is drinking. So what are you drinking tonight?
Probably not as sophisticated a drinker as you are. I am well, I'm a vodka person first. Have been since college. I'm not drinking vodka tonight out of respect for your show, for your series.
We have no qualms against any. Actually, there's a bottle of vodka behind me right here. Gifted bottle from my niece, if she's watching this, for officiating her wedding. So,
well, when I'm not enjoying some combination that involves vodka, I like a combination that involves Captain Morgan. And so this is a Captain with Cherry Coke Zero.
And Captain and Coke.
not
or
a
Captain
whole lot,
Cherry Coke
not a
Zero.
whole lot of Cherry Coke Zero in there, but enough to darken the color a little bit. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what is ironic about that? So Captain and Coke, at some point in my life, 30% of my body was made of Captain and Coke. Like I was from like 19 to 25, like it was Captain and Coke pretty constantly. I only came to whiskey older in life, kind of probably mid-30s when I came to it. But that's a man of my own heart. So
yeah. I as a sipper, I like Woodford Reserve. And I just don't have any stocked right this minute, or I probably would have had a little Woodford Reserve going during this conversation. But I confess to having loved Captain Morgan for decades. So, and I'm one of those people. If I go to a restaurant, I will usually have the same thing at that restaurant over and over again.
Right.
Because I love to know for sure that I'm going to like what I pay for. I guess I'm one of those people. I'll keep going back to that well. I want to know I'm going to love this, and
right. Yeah. No, I like to do the same thing. Like I'll go to a restaurant and then I find what's great there. Like I'll try a few things, but then I always like to ask, and it comes off as cheeky, but I almost always order it. I'll just ask, what is the thing? I never come back here. What do I eat? And then I'll ask the waiter and they'll go, well, you have to try this. They'll make a choice. And 9 times out of 10, it's brilliant. And that's what I just eat there going forward.
Absolutely. 9 times out of 10. I'll ask, what's your favorite? And I'll ask, what do more people like the most? Yeah, those two questions tend to be gold. Especially if the first question doesn't give me the answer I'm really looking for.
Right. Yeah, I know.
I love the zucchini casserole. What do most people
Right. Yeah, that's true. It did catch me one time. I was in Wisconsin and our waitress was probably like 18. And I'm like, what do we have? It's a really nice restaurant. She's like, you have to have the Cap'n Crunch chicken tenders. So I'm like, okay, I'm not doing I'll do Captain Crunch chicken tenders, but that's not what I'm eating. Like I'll try one of those, but
that's not what I'm paying for. Yes.
Right. Exactly. So I am gonna make I feel like I've been remiss. I've filmed 5-6 of these episodes now, and I still haven't made an old fashioned for anyone. So I'm going to make an old fashioned that has made an old fashioned lover out of almost every adult man I know. Because we love to host. That's why we have this bar behind me. So I'm going to take 30 seconds. It'll be super fast. And then anyone wants to try this, viewing it, try it and let me know, because it's going to change the world. I feel like this is going to go viral.
I'm going to have to take notes.
So let me adjust this just a little so people can see. I think I'm in shot. So super easy ingredients here. We're just going to do, and what's going to matter for an old fashioned, and the reason they call it an old fashioned is it's theoretically the first cocktail. So I love these, and you mentioned liking Woodford. These are Woodford Reserve cherries. I think that's up on the thing.
Yeah, I see it.
I love these ones. They're a little more expensive, but they're not as sweet, and they're super good. It's an orange, some regular old, Augusta bitters. I like just a little bit of these. They're Scrappy's bitters. There's an orange one. Okay. You can see how much I like it. It's almost empty, but barely going to use any of that. And then for bourbons, you don't need anything great, right? We're going to mix this, but I love Bulliet bourbon for an old fashioned, especially a rye. I have both. One of them's probably not showing on the camera. It's on the top shelf here, but it's super good. So key here, and I think it's on camera. It's getting a little dark here. Get a big ice cube. I like these 1.5 inch spheres. This one's a little wet, so I'm going to set that down. You can do the cubes too.
Where do you get those? I mean,
Amazon.
You get those?
Yeah, you can get Yep, you can get a nice big cubes, 6 of them. It was just what I just got because my old one broke, that I've had for years. But and get the 1.5 inch. The one, our refrigerator, actually, my wife convinced me to buy this new refrigerator because it makes the 1-inch ones.
Right.
And they're fine, but when you actually make a cocktail, they're a little small. So get the 1.5.
Okay.
So, and then we're going to see here. So, and again, this is cooking. This isn't baking. So I just do like kind of like 5 shakes of the Augusta. I think I'm saying that wrong, but couple of the orange here. And again, I don't measure. I go by memory, muscle memory here, and I just pour the bourbon or the rye in this case on top until I've gone a little above the ice cube there.
I'm happy to see.
And so
I'm happy to see
and
that
that's it.
I'm happy to see that you're not a measured pour guy.
I am not. I am not. I disagree with that strongly.
I do too. Yes.
And then the last thing I noticed with this, so every old-fashioned recipe will ask for simple syrup. If you do simple syrup and then you do cherries, is when you get an old-fashioned and it's sickly sweet and you don't like it. So I cut out the simple syrup completely. And what I do when I do this, and I'll see if I can grab it here. Where's it at? I just try to get, when I grab out a cherry, I try to get some of the juice in there. So, because there's already a ton of sugar in this juice. And then I just give it like 5-6 swirls here. And then the last thing, an important thing, you can make it without the orange. It just does not taste as fresh and as delicious from there. So I like to, that was kind of a sad one here, but I like to just grab the orange peel, spritz it in there. I cut 2 of them here because it broke on me, and then rub it around the inside where you're going to drink. The other thing, I learned this at the Malibu Cafe, which anyone's not acquainted, Malibu, Calabasas, super rich area, beach areas of Los Angeles is where I think Iron Man lives and has a big house in like Malibu. And the canyon there's some nice mountains and hiking trails. There's a little place called the Malibu Cafe, which is really fun, kind of tucked away. And the bartender was doing this, and I fell in love with it. As he was taking a lighter, I'm just using one of these cheap ones here, and was rubbing it over the orange and rubbing it, and then just giving a little bit there. So you can do a smoked one. I'll do a smoked one of one of these episodes. I'm hit and miss about the smoked. And let me readjust this camera, me to set. But that's it. So I pop these out every family get together holiday.
Nice.
And I mean, everyone loves them. Some people then turn to hate them because they love them so much and fear them. But it's super simple, super good. You still get to taste the whiskey, livens it up a little. So cheers, my friend.
Good. Yes, cheers. Good. I gotta get that right there. That's a nice tip about the juice coming from the jar, not just the fruit.
Right.
Yeah. My dad, every night, come home from work, and he would make a bourbon Manhattan for himself and for my mom. They were both Manhattan people, and
sure.
he actually made the same point when I'm like this knucklehead freshman in high school, and I wasn't drinking them, but he say,
right.
Yeah, when I do the maraschino cherry for your mom, she likes a little bit of the juice to come, or the syrup to come from the jar.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why he told me that, but he did. I guess he was saying way ahead of time, make sure you know what your wife likes.
Right.
That is
wise man.
Yeah, good advice to his 14-year-old kid at the
time. Right, exactly. Remember to add a little juice from the cherry, and when you
remember these things, right?
7 years from now, a third of your life later, you remember these things.
Right. Yep.
I think you're right though. He's probably more the message in it, like make sure you know what your wife likes.
I think that's really what
you do that thing.
Saying. Yeah, and he was giving me maybe at the time a little too much credit for knowing what the hell he was talking about, but I do now. I do now. Yes.
Right. Yeah. Very good. So, so awesome. So, for our audience here, where in the world are you right now? Like
Where
place. I know where you are, like where you're
geographically?
living, but yeah, geographically, where are you?
Yeah, Jacksonville, Florida.
Okay.
A suburb on the west side called Orange Park is where
Okay.
we, and it takes us maybe 25, 30 minutes to get to downtown Jacksonville, maybe
Very cool.
40 minutes to get to the beach. And we
Mm-hmm.
love it here. We absolutely love it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, very cool. So if I'm coming to Jacksonville, what is the one thing I have to do?
Ooh, wow. The one thing you have to do when you come to Jacksonville. That's interesting. You probably are not aware of anything culturally in Jacksonville at all. It's a nice place to live, but
Mm-hmm.
honestly, there are concerts come to town. The first concert I took my daughters to was Boz Scaggs in 2019, about a year before the pandemic ended concerts.
Right, sure.
And the Florida Theater in downtown Jacksonville is a grand old place to see a music act
Uh-huh.
or a play. If there's something going on at the Florida Theater, I would go there because
Mm-hmm.
I love an old classy
Sure.
theater that really hasn't changed, that still has the red velvet seats and an
Right.
intermission with cocktail bars out in the lobby. Um,
Right.
you know, that is to me, that's my favorite thing to go do in downtown Jacksonville.
Mm-hmm.
Is
Sure.
to go to a is to go to a to go experience some music there. They're never going to have the Rolling Stones, but they do get people like Boz Scaggs in that mean a
Right.
lot to me.
Sure.
I ran out and bought his album Soak Degrees when it came out, and wore it out. Um, and so the chance to take my girls and really to introduce them to someone like that, because we lived in Jacksonville, was nice. I think he lives in LA or San Francisco, so I'm sure it's no big deal where you are. But yeah,
No,
but yeah,
that's awesome because when we were there was so I had to go pretty routinely for a stretch there about a good stretch, 5-7 years. I had to go out to the Chicago area. And what used to make it worthwhile is I would go work for the week, and then my wife Claire would meet me up on Friday. So I'd work Friday, she would meet me. I would extend my trip and just fly back on Sunday with her, and we would just go explore downtown Chicago.
yes,
Because anyone that hasn't been to LA and they're like, oh, I want to go to LA. You don't want to go to LA. You want to go to the surrounding area. No one
right,
wants to be in downtown LA. Like
right,
there is a few nicer areas now, but you're like, oh, Little Tokyo's brilliant. It's a really nice little area. You
yeah,
walk 3 steps and it's really bad. And you're
yeah,
terrified, right? But Chicago, you want to be downtown. Like it's really awesome. We
yeah,
explore all day long.
yeah,
And Christian Chenoweth, she played Glinda on the original Wicked.
right,
It's had a great career. She
sure,
was doing a show at one of the old Chicago theaters, that same type of venue. And we're walking and we're like, oh, her show's tonight. Let's see if we can get tickets. And there was tickets, and it was that same thing. It was just,
right,
it was magical. And we're just lifetime fans of hers now. And
yeah,
you have the cocktails at the intermission and just enjoy the show. And she is funny and dirty and
he
just
is.
an amazing singer. And it was just,
All of that, yes,
yeah, yeah. And so I feel you completely. That's a great recommendation to go to the theater and just see whoever's there. I mean, I saw Paul Anka one time randomly, kind of a different scenario, and
yeah,
I'm a lifetime Paul Anka fan now, and he's way
yeah,
before my time, but he's
yeah,
brilliant and hilarious.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And any chance to discover people like that, artists like that. And sometimes you can discover artists like that because you are in a place like Jacksonville, where there's not some huge venue for music. I mean, when there is a large act coming in, like we saw the Rolling Stones the same year at the NFL stadium where the Jacksonville Jaguars play.
Sure.
The Stones, that's a stadium concert. But the intimacy of the Boz Scaggs concert, you know, one of my favorite music artists from when I was a kid. My daughters, who at the time were, let's see, they were second semester freshmen in high school when I took them to see Boz Scaggs. They knew who he was. They'd heard Lido Shuffle and whatnot, but they didn't know what an incredibly great musician this was. And so Jacksonville is good for things like that. Also, for anyone in your audience who loves bookstores, there is a used bookstore in downtown Jacksonville called Chamblin, Chamblin. And it has a little cafe and a little bar and whatnot. And it's 2 floors, the most incredible selection of antiquarian books, used books that I've ever seen in my life. So if I go to downtown Jacksonville, I like to include a visit to Chamblin. That's it's amazing. I mean, definitely for people who write, but everybody who writes seriously is a serious reader, and that's a gold mine there. If you're ever in downtown Jacksonville, hit Chamblin.
Sure. Yeah. That's a great, and I'm going to give a shout out here too, because I'm never going to remember to do this again. But anyone comes to LA, there's Pasadena. If you know the Rose Parade or the Rose Bowl, those things that show up. I'm 10 minutes from Pasadena. I'm east along the mountains there. You'll see in the background sometimes have snow. Pretty low when the foothills there get snow, but you'll see that sometimes. There is the most wonderful independent bookstore there. Pasadena is a really fun city. I love it. We go all the time. It's 10 minutes from us, so it's fun anyways, but called Romans. And what's super awesome about Romans, for one, is it's been there forever. It's family owned. It's 2 stories of books. And all the staff, when you go to literary fiction section, you'll see staff recommendation and someone's handwritten what book they like and why.
Oh, I love it.
And they do a bunch of stuff for like big authors, but they also every month they do something for smaller, like local authors. I think they call it the local author series. So I've read there a couple of times. You can go read and you can find your next, author that you love, and you can go and find the next, the huge authors you love as they roll through as well. But anyone that's in the LA area, Pasadena is, just a trip down a pretty terrifying freeway. What's that freeway? The 134, which is a very old, kind of windy freeway, and people still want to drive it like you should go 90. But at least right downtown, and it's 15 minutes from downtown. So.
Oh wow. Okay, I've written that down. Yeah. Moments.
Okay, so let's get back to you. So, I've spent time with you at our Short Story America conferences and things. You're like the nicest human being I've ever met, and I mean that genuinely. You're just a very genuine, great guy. But so what I really want to know is, what is like a pet peeve? What like really like kind of pisses you off like in the day, right? Like mine's very easy because I'm in the LA area. It's just other drivers. Like,
oh yeah.
It's not them doing anything. They could be driving perfectly well. It's just the sheer number of people on the road annoys me. Like I can't agree with any of them. But but what about you?
Gosh, I mean, it's sort of connected with that. I'd say unnecessary selfishness, which kind of connects with what you just said, because you see a lot of unnecessary selfishness on the road.
Sure. Right.
It happened to me just yesterday, picking up my 4th grader at school. a guy in a extra long bed red pickup truck just decided, I'm going to break in line at the pickup line. You don't break in line in the line of parents picking up their kids at school.
Right.
And he
Right.
wedges his way in, not in front of me, in front of the car in front of him, inducing a honk of the horn from that car.
Mm-hmm.
But he made it in. Why did he make it in? Because his philosophy, and this is where we come in as writers, because he becomes a character. He becomes a character.
Right. Sure. Right. Yeah, absolutely.
His philosophy clearly was, I'm wrong, but I don't think it's worth it for you to show me that I'm wrong. It's not,
Yeah.
it's not worth it for you
Right.
for me to end up hitting you with my vehicle in order to wedge my way in. So you're going to let me in,
Right.
because you don't want the insurance hassle, the police, everything else. That's my philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to make me a character in a story by Tim Johnston or Bill Hincy someday.
Right. Yeah. You know what's funny about that is, man, I've been on both ends. I mean, I remember there was a time I was a single dad. So it just for the audience. So I was 20 when I had my first daughter, Rhiannon, which one of these whiskeys is actually here because that's her name. You barely ever find it spelled out Rhiannon.
Unless you're into Fleetwood Mac, you're right.
Exactly, and that's what she's named after. She's named after.
Okay.
She's named after a Fleetwood Mac song. Yeah.
Oh yeah. All right. Great.
Her mom loved it, and that was the name. So I had Rhiannon, and then her sister Cassidy. With I never married her. Their mom, my girlfriend at the time, and I was a single dad. After she had some issues and was trying to get her life straight and things, so they're mostly with me growing up, and it was a struggle. And I remember needing to commute, right? I'm commuting in LA, like all getting around, and I remember being in some just beat up cars. I mean, like, look, I can't be 2 hours on the road. I'm gonna cut right to the middle. And I remember being there, and like I'm 20, 21, and someone doesn't want to let me in, and I'm just budging in. And I would roll down the window and just be like, hit me, because I don't care about my car. Like, you're in a Mercedes, you care. And now I'm on the other end of that. And I'm like, this guy, right? And it's like, it makes you think about how hard life can be in general, right? I wrote a story in Without Expiration called The Friendly Stranger. And it was all about that rage. And it was both sides of it. Because I think by the time I wrote it, by the time I finished it, because you write something and you rewrite it and you come back to it years later. By the time I finished it, it was kind of both sides, where it's like you think this guy, oh, he got cut off, and you want to agree with him, and then you realize, no, maybe not.
Yeah, I mean
that's rough.
That's a great point. As a fiction writer, especially short stories. You're dropping the reader into a situation that is ripe for conflict, that has early tension, and point of view makes an enormous amount of difference. And so you never know when the person who's forcing their way in is forcing their way in because they just got a phone call from the hospital that their wife on bed rest is having their baby on an unexpected basis.
Right.
Well, does that change everything? Yeah, it does.
Sure.
Right. So when you examine your other regarding behavior, we all fall prey to the tendency to not understand the other person's situation or what it might be. Usually they don't have one and they're just an asshole, but not always.
That's very true. That's the other end of it.
Yeah. And you mentioned my story, Friday Afternoon, the title story from Friday Afternoon.
Yeah.
That's a road rage situation.
Sure.
Bryce Stanford, an executive from the city, who just cannot understand why this guy in this muddy sky blue pickup in front of him on a 2-lane road can't go faster, because Bryce wants to make it to his father-in-law's birthday party, and that is way more important than anything he could imagine for Jed Clampett today.
Right.
And the guy in front of him,
Right.
and I'm just like,
and that's it half the time, right?
That guy may have that thing floored, right? And all it can go is 50. You don't know. That's it. This old piece of garbage pickup truck in front of you. But
I drove a Geo Metro for a while.
What's that?
Have you ever heard of a Geo Metro?
I remember them.
Excuse me. I had a Geo Metro when I first started commuting.
I'm glad you're
my brother's car. He had basically given it to me, right? I was gonna like pay him $500 or something, but it wasn't worth a lot. He was like, "Oh, this will help you." He gets great gas mileage back in the days, early 2000s. And if I was on the freeway, if I was going downhill, I could get to 85. If I was going uphill, I could get to 55. And then anyone that knows the area, so where I lived was Palmdale, which is famous for Paul George, that played for the Indianapolis Pacers and now plays for the Clippers. He actually went to the school my brother teaches at, Pete Knight High School. I think it's just called Pete Knight High School, but in East Palmdale. And so when you come back, all those mountains I mentioned with Pasadena, the San Gabriel Mountains, Palmdale's on the other side. It's high desert. So I was commuting down through those mountains down into Northridge, where the big earthquake was all those years ago, and then back. But it's all up and down. It's up and down, up and down. So it's like I'm going 85. I'm going 55. I'm going 85. And I'm desperate to get home. So I'm like, okay, I'm trying to go 85 when I can. But then when it hits an uphill, I need to try to move over so people can get past me. And they're freaking out because I'm going 55 now. And I'm just, it's floored. Like I this is the best I can do. I'm in the Geo Metro, they're gonna.
Yes.
Well,
I'm glad you're still with us, because that was the relative latter day, 90s version of the Pinto, really.
It really was.
As far as road safety, if you got no
sure.
Like that.
Well, you know how it ended up dying. I drove it 3-4 weeks. And I'm driving to work one day, and all of a sudden you hear boop, 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 boop. And I'm like, what is that? And suddenly the car's vibrating. So luckily I'm able to exit. I get off, and I don't get a half mile. I get off, and then the car just dies, and the smoke comes up under the hood, right? The whole, cinematic, usual breakdown moment. I get out, I call the tow truck. It turns out there was one screw that had come loose, and that screw coming loose had literally blown up the engine. So the car was ruined, and we sold it for scrap. And my brother felt miserable about it, because he's like, he put tires, as his wife was like, you can't give it to him. My older brother's 7-8 years older than me too. And his wife, she's like, you cannot give it to him. You can't give it. And I'm the 7th William in the line, so every one of us has been Billy, right? So all my family, anyone that goes Billy, I assume like I've known you since I was a kid. You cannot give it to Billy. You have to get new tires. You cannot give Billy that car that way. It's a death trap. Goes and gets the new tires and stuff. 3 weeks later, it completely dies, and she's like, "You gave him a death trap."
Wow!
That was the end of it. That was the end of my Geo Metro experience.
Geo Metro, wow, yeah. Oh my gosh.
So, what's a guilty pleasure?
Wow, a guilty pleasure.
I always struggle with that too, because I'm not sure I feel guilty about any of them.
There you go. I'm not sure I don't feel guilty about many pleasures in life. I've got nothing to hide, I guess I should say that. Maybe the guilt would come from having something to hide. I don't know. My wife knows how much I passionately love the rotisserie baseball league I've been in since 1987. Which has nothing to do with my family.
Right, sure.
Nothing to do with her. and it is like a second marriage for me.
Sure. You said 87?
It's been this group of guys since
That is
87.
impressive. Wow.
And oh yeah, I mean, right now we have a text conversation, all of us. There are 8 of us in this league, okay? And
Right.
and it's very competitive. There's no money involved and none of that stuff. Just
Right.
did you play for pride? You were trying to win. We all are very committed to trying to win,
Right.
and with great camaraderie in the whole thing and lots of kidding. But everybody is very serious about building as good a team as possible. It's a keeper
Sure.
league. I don't know if you know what I mean by keeper league, but your
Yeah, I
players
know what you mean.
are your players. There's a draft
Yeah.
every year, 10-round draft of new players, but then you cut players to fit them on your 50-man roster. It's serious business.
Right.
and 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 so there are times when we have something going on, whether it's our annual draft or right now, Major League Baseball's winter meetings are happening in San Diego.
Sure.
We are all glued to it. We have an ongoing text commentary. How is this moving affecting various guys in our league? And one guy in our league, it's not me, unfortunately, who has Aaron Judge, just got the big signing today,
Right.
but my boy Justin Verlander just got his big one, and my boy Jacob DeGrom just got his big one. But
There you go.
we're engaged with each other on this all the time, and
Right.
and when I'm in that world, it's like I'm writing a new story or a new chapter in a novel,
Right.
all the way there. So it's a guilty pleasure for me. It is
Right.
that I don't think about anything, including my own family, when
Right.
I'm doing baseball stuff with the guys in our league.
Right. Sure.
I guess that's it for me. Yeah.
That's a perfect one, actually. I couldn't even ask for more than that.
Yeah.
So I think my wife knew this when we were, probably even before we were dating, because my wife and I actually, she was married and I had a pretty serious girlfriend, and we double dated back in the day because we were friends.
Wow.
Yeah. My stepdaughter, so we have the 4. We're very blended, right? We're mine, hers, his. So I had the 2 girls I mentioned before, Rand and Cassie.
Right.
My wife had been married previously and had Michaela, so my stepdaughter, the youngest of the daughters. And then Claire and I got married, and then we had our son, so that's the ours, William, because it would have literally killed my dad. My dad would have spontaneously combusted if we did not name that boy William. Like they were, like,
because you were number 7.
I was 7. Yeah. So the story is, ever since we came from Ireland, it's been Williams. But I can confirm that my dad's William, his dad was William, his dad was William, and his dad was William. Like it's been Williams. We've all different middle names. So my son's William Wallace, after Braveheart, because my wife didn't realize that's what I was proposing at first, and I snuck that in.
Wow. Without mentioning Braveheart.
No. Well, because
you didn't yell out freedom or anything like that.
No. It's art of the deal. I said, you know what? What if we name him William Danger? She's like, we're not going to name him Danger. I'm like, come on, it'd be awesome. He'll be like an accountant, but he can always tell everyone my middle name's Danger, right? Yeah. No, we're not. That's ridiculous. I'm like, well, what about William Wallace?
Then you backed up to your real goal.
Right. Oh, that sounds okay. I like that. I'm like, she's like, oh dear, that's that blue faced guy you like, isn't it? I'm like, yeah. So actually, when we went to Scotland pre-pandemic, it's so hard to tell time now, but besides pre and after, right? But we had gone 2018, I think it was. We were in Scotland. We went to the William Wallace Monument, and I actually have the sword. I'll have to at some point post a picture of the actual bar when you look away. But I have a dragon skull immediately there that I'm looking at, a 4-foot long kind of dragon skull. and the Wayne Wallace sword that's supposed to be the actual replica, like size wise and everything, goes through its mouth and just lays across the bar at all times here.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's super neat, but that's what we ended up with. So that's the problem, right? I have too many like guilty pleasures to name them, right? Like it's the stupid dragon skull here. I love Dawson's Creek, and she teases me for it, but you know, how can you not? Like,
I am a big lifelong fan of scary movies.
Okay.
And so my wife and I, well, we weren't married yet, you know, but we were dating. It had gotten serious. And, you know, part of dating sometimes is maybe saying things that indicate that you like something the other person likes.
Sure.
You know, so Stacy, you know, told me, oh yeah, I love scary movies too.
Right.
And she'd watch them with me. And I really love a good scary movie. Good one. I mean, you know, it has to be a good one, but boy, do I love them. And anyway, it turned out, you know, she didn't like scary movies at all.
All right.
But looking back, it turned out that she pretended to, because she'd fallen in love with me. So okay, you know, so I've never been mad about the fact that she doesn't watch scary movies with me anymore.
Right.
But that is a guilty pleasure of mine. I will watch a scary movie,
right,
whether she wants to watch one or not. I just have to find a time that I can watch it by myself.
Right. And well, there you go.
And that's a big one for me. I really do enjoy suspenseful scary movies, thrillers too, but I separate the two. Yeah, so I something that you said triggered that, you know, that that is another one for me. You know, I look for what might scare me in a movie, a book too. I mean, it's one reason I like Stephen King, you know.
Sure. Right. You know what's funny is I actually really like the bad scary movies. My
bad ones, yeah.
Yeah. My buddy and I will watch those and just laugh. I mean, like there was one, I'm gonna blank on the name. It was like Tucker and Dale Fight Evil. And it is so ridiculous. It's these two stereotypical hillbillies.
Yeah.
And these city slickers come to town. And the city slickers literally are killing themselves. Like they're terrified of Tucker and Dale, but they keep stumbling and like falling into wood chippers and things, and they're just like, what are they doing? And that one's meant to be ridiculous, but the first Nightmare on Elm Street, the first one, right? Like when you rewatch it and you realize, oh look, there's Johnny Depp turning into a mannequin and getting pulled out the window.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and of course, I love to make fun of the ridiculous decisions that people make.
Sure, that's fun, yeah.
Like, why would you possibly go down there after asking the question, "Is anybody down there?" Let's make a list. Let's make a list of all the good things and all the bad things that can happen. Right. How long is the list of good things?
Right.
One item. Nobody's down there.
Right.
But the list on the other side is not good.
Your pros and cons here are not adding up.
There's 10. If anybody's actually down there and not answering you, what in the hell are you doing going down there? Mm-hmm. And over again, I will talk out loud to the movie screen. You know?
Right, exactly.
There was a commercial a few years ago that really did a great job.
I think it's progressive. I think it's a progressive. I think I know where they're like, let's hide behind the chainsaws or whatever.
Yeah. Where the girl goes, why don't we get in that running car? And the guy goes, are you crazy? Let's hide behind the chainsaw. The person who's right is totally ignored. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you can basically parent your kids off those movies. Like, this is the object lesson. You want to do the opposite of this. Like,
Right. If
not
you
to
find
do.
yourself in this situation and
Right.
there's a running car with the door open, get and drive away.
Right.
Okay?
Exactly.
Okay, kids? Ready,
Yeah.
break. Yes.
Exactly. See how it goes. So, so what haunts you? Is there something that keeps you up at night, or I mean, maybe it's multiple things nowadays, but is there a particular haunt?
Gosh. No, I mean, really, no. I mean, I can't think of something specific that haunts me. Well, okay, I shouldn't say that. I'm getting older now, and not to turn serious, but the older
Mhm.
you get, the more you think about your end,
Sure.
you know. And that has started to haunt me. I've always enjoyed life, and I still very much enjoy life. But as you get older, you start to think about the fact that 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 you that day is coming.
Sure.
And what's it like? You know, you go back and forth. Okay, do I hope that there is another life after this one? Um, no matter what I'll get, you might not get something you like very much.
I know you might.
Or, hey, until I was born, I didn't know that I didn't exist.
Sure.
Is it better to not know you no longer exist? That actually haunts me way more than when I was 35 years old,
Sure.
because you don't, when you're 35, you really, unless there's something wrong with you, you're not thinking a whole
Right.
lot about the fact that eventually you're going to be older and you're going to die. Because you're still trying to, as Walt Disney said, keep moving forward, which we always should be doing.
Sure.
But yeah, so on a more serious note,
Right.
I find, as a writer, I'm aware of the fact that Ernest Hemingway took his own life when he was 61.
Right.
61, you know,
Right.
that's not old. And he ended it when he
Mm-hmm.
was 61. I mean, and if that doesn't haunt you in the sense of, well, that guy, how did he not have it all?
Right.
Is there any way that he didn't have it all? I mean,
Right.
he had literary greatness. He had this generations of family. He was Papa.
Mm-hmm.
Why the world, you know?
Right.
And but then you read more and you realize that he was suffering from advanced diabetes and all the things that come with that, and he wasn't. He didn't want to be here anymore.
Sure.
And so I think one reason it haunts me is that I do want to be here. It's great,
Uh-huh.
it's
Sure.
great being here. It's a miracle that we're here. Uh,
Really?
and that helps things not to haunt you as much.
Right.
Just knowing how lucky you are to be here in the first place.
Right. Yeah. That's beautiful. Well said. Um, you know what I think? Jesus, I think I wrote a whole short story collection on what haunts me. And that's, I don't have it here easily to grab, but I mean, looking back at it without expiration, which was a lot of short stories I just published through the years.
Yeah.
I'm just terrified. I'm terrified of everything that has to do with my kids. And
What was
I'm
that?
terrified of everything that has to do with my kids.
Yeah.
Like when they
Yeah.
were younger, when I had the two, Rhiannon and Cassie, when it was the kind of three of us in that family unit, I was always terrified it was going to do something wrong and it was going to kill them. And there's so much. And so it's like when I do readings for like best if used by, or and just any of the stories of that
Story
collection,
in SSA. Yeah.
yeah, in Short Story America, when I do those readings, I don't have that experience. Like, they're alive. I'm just thankful. every day. I think every day that I
really,
have them.
yeah.
But
yeah, that's a fear. When you ask me about what haunts you, that is my greatest fear, which to me is different from what haunts you.
Sure.
What you're talking about right now. Keep going, but
Sure.
yeah.
No, yeah, and I appreciate that because they are different. But what happens is last night I was up because my son like PE, the blow you through the ball, and it's very sad. I was fairly athletic when I was younger, not famously so, right? I was, but I did very well for myself, right? Like play varsity, all of that, like played with everyone, did very well.
Yeah.
But he's very artistic. He's like the sweetest human. He's super creative. The only person I've ever been around that like his creativity makes me tired. Like I'm like, okay, let's reel this in. I need to take a nap, But he had a boy throw the ball in his face. And I'm like, why didn't you just catch the ball? Why didn't you dodge the ball? And he's like, I just kind of froze, in that moment.
Oh.
That kept me up, and that's what it is. It just, that's what haunts me. I'm like, if I didn't have, and I think it was John Lennon that said, when you have kids, you give hostages to the world. And it's like, I feel
oh, that's good. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like I've given hostages, like the world has me. Like I could like do anything.
You're right. You're right. Yeah.
Excuse me, like I could be running, like I have no fear for myself. Like I could like do so much things, but you have these hostages and you have me like at all times,
Yeah.
Blasted world.